All right, welcome to geometry this year. Our first unit is the essentials of geometry, where we will be learning everything you need to know, give you a basis as we begin studying all the different segments and angles and figures that we'll talk about in geometry. Uh, we'll begin with our first lesson. It talks about points, lines, and planes. Here you can read through the standards that we'll be addressing throughout this lesson. And as we go through the lesson, make sure you have your notes out so that you can fill in everything you need to know and you can look back at. Uh, the other thing to keep in mind is that you can pause the video at any time, rewind it if you miss something, um, and keep it going at your own pace. If I talk too fast for you, stop it and rewind it. So here we go. First thing we'll talk about is what is known as the undefined terms. These are terms that we make up. We make up the term point, line, and plane. It's just something that we in geometry come up with so we can refer to different things. And as we're looking at figures, we can say that's a point, that's a line, or that's a plane. So first thing we take a look at is a point. Usually it's signified with a dot. A point has no dimension. Okay, it's just a specific location that we refer to. And notice we refer to it as point A, or we could just say A. It's usually given by a capital letter in geometry. Okay, so the next term we'll take a look at is a line. You can see the diagram of the line here. A line has only one dimension, which means it only goes in one direction and its opposite. Okay, we represent that in the diagram as a line, and we have arrowheads at the end of each line to show that it goes on infinitely in both directions, okay, through those 2 points A and B. So in order to be a line, it's got to have 2 points. Okay, there's exactly one line through those 2 points. And when we name the line, we can use any 2 points that are on the line. In this case, we have 2 points A and B, so we can call it line AB. We can use the symbol with the arrowheads over it, AB. We could also call it line BA. We'll use the same thing. We also can refer to lines in the cursive or the script if that is signified by the line. So that would be line L. Those are different ways to name a line. A plane, we say, has 2 dimensions. Okay, it's represented a shape that looks like a floor or wall, but it extends in 2 different directions, both laterally and also up and down. So it extends in all directions. We have to have, in order to get a plane, we need 3 points that are not all on the same line. Okay, and there's one plane with those 3 points. Okay, if we had 3 points that were all in the line, like say we had A, B, and let's say we have another point C here, that would still just be a line because it's only going in one dimension. It needs to extend out the other way. So we can use 3 points that are not on the same line to name a plane. So here we can say plane ABC, because those are 3 points on the plane. They're not all in a line. We could say BAC, it doesn't matter the order. Sometimes the plane will be labeled. See this M here, it's not signifying by a point, so we call that just plane M. Okay, 2 other terms that we'll come across are collinear and coplanar. Collinear just means all the points are on the same line. F, Z, and P are collinear. Points are coplanar if they're all in the same plane. So up here, A, B, and C are all coplanar. Okay, so those are terms that we'll come across. Points, lines, and planes, we come up with those terms because we use those as we refer to any type of figure, whether in real life or in our geometric sketches. So if I want to say you need to clean up that spot on the window, well, I'm referring to a point, a specific location. If I said, well, look at those lines that are dividing the windows, okay? Or if I say the whole window pane, that would be a plane. If we're looking at a map, specific locations are points. Lines are connecting those points. Planes are the whole region of the map. Okay. Collinear, coplanar. If I'm looking at the tennis balls, which ones would be collinear? Well, any three tennis balls that I could draw a line through. Like say, for instance, F, E, and G are collinear. F, E, and D are not collinear because I have to make two lines to get there. Coplanar, that would be any of the balls that are lying on the ground that are not bouncing. So any of those would be coplanar that are not all in a row. Now let's do some work with that. Looking at the diagram, question A says give two other names for, that's line PQ, and for plane R. So if we're looking at PQ, it would be this line here. What's another way to name that? Well, we could name that line QP. Okay. And put the arrowheads on the end. Are there any other points on that line? No. We could also name it by this letter here. So we could also call it line N. Okay. And for plane R, that's this plane here. It signifies, on the diagram, it's this quadrilateral right here. So we can choose any points that are not all collinear. So we could say plane VSP would be another way to name that one, or any combination of points in there. One we could not choose would be plane SPT, because that's not enough to signify a plane, it's just a line. Part B, 3 points that are collinear. Well, SPT. And 4 points that are coplanar. Well, let's look at the plane here. Plane R, we've got V, S, P, and T are the only 4 points on there. So those would be the points that are coplanar. Okay. Well, S, P, and T are merely collinear. Okay, so that's naming those points and lines and planes in different ways. Let's also get some other types of figures that we'll come across. Line segments and rays. Give you some examples of what are line segments and which ones are not line segments. Examples of what are rays and what are not rays. So pause the video and examine those and see if you can come up with how you would define a line segment or a ray. Okay, let's define those now. Did you notice the differences between what makes it a line segment and what makes it a ray? Let's get those definitions down. So, as we talked about before, a line, look at all these terms written down here. Line AB, as we have here, has the arrowheads that extend in both directions. We draw that with the arrowheads on top to show that it's a line. But when we get to a segment, you notice that it started and ended at the endpoints, those points. So when we designate it as a segment, we draw that line over the top, line AB, but now it's segment, line segment AB. Notice there's no arrowheads. It has a starting and a stopping point. So it has all the points between A and B that are on line AB. So we could, in this diagram, have the arrows extending through A and B, but if we were referring to just this segment from A to B, say line segment AB. Notice we can also call it segment BA if we wanted to. Doesn't matter the order there. Okay, ray AB, okay, that would be this one down here, would be written as AB. Now we'll put in that one, we'll have a line that extends to the right with an arrowhead on the right because it goes past B and continues in that direction. So it consists of the endpoint A and all points on AB that lie on the same side of A as B. So all the points that continue out past B on this side of A. Note we have two different rays here. This one is ray AB. This one is not the same. This one would be ray BA. Do you notice the difference in those two and how we write them? When we write rays, we always put the starting point, the end point first, and the ray is pointing to the right. So it starts at B, goes through A. It starts at B, goes through A. This one starts at A, goes through B. Okay, so AB and BA are different rays, and that's a common error. So make sure you have that. Note the difference in those two. Okay, because many people think you can switch those around just like you can switch lines and segments, but ray is a little bit different in that manner. Okay, so let's get some practice naming different segments rays and figuring out what are opposite rays. So part A tells us to give another name for segment GH. So I can name that segment in just the same way that I as I look for the endpoints of GH. The only other way to name that would be in its opposite way. So HG would be the only other way to name that one. Some might think, well, can't I label a GH as a line? Well, then it's a different portion of the line that we're looking at. If we're looking at a segment, it's just this part from G to H. If I add it as a line, then I'm adding all the points beyond those points. Part B says name all the rays with the endpoint J. So if I'm starting at J, I could go through another point and extend in one direction forever. So through E, I could go through F, I could go through G, or I could go through H. So I could label all those starting at JE. I could say JF. I could say JG. And I could say JH. Notice each of these start with J because that's the endpoint we're looking at. And I wrote all those with J on the left and the arrow going to the right. That's how we need to write rays. Now, if we're looking at which ones are opposite rays, opposite ones are, well, they go opposite directions. That's a way to remember it. So JE, opposite direction is JF. So the opposite rays would be JE and JF. And another set of opposite rays would be JG and JH. Those go opposite directions. So opposite rays form a line. That's another way to think of it. And one final thing we want to take a look at is intersections. Okay, let's define what an intersection is. An intersection is when two or more geometric figures have one or more points in common. So it's where they cross. The intersection of the figures is the set of points that they have in common. So if I have two lines intersecting, they're going to cross at one point. So they intersect at point A. If I have two planes intersecting, remember we think of a plane could be like a wall. You know, where do the walls meet? Well, they meet along a line in the corner of the room. So planes meet on a line. Okay, so that is it for today. We've learned the basics of the terminology. We've learned the undefined terms of a point, line, and plane. Learned what collinear and coplanar means. We've also taken a look at some newer terms, line segments and rays, and defined those. And we also learned what an intersection of the figures is known as. So we'll use that knowledge as we continue out throughout the year. That's the basics, the essentials that we need to know. You have some practice problems that you will need to work on now. If you have any questions with them, you can bring those questions to class. I've provided the solutions on the class website. So take a look at those, check your work, and we'll do some more work in class and apply what we know. All right, have fun.